Hey guys, and welcome back to the Natty Scene with your host AJ Morris. This is episode number 7, and we are back joined by another natural athlete in the form of Vicky Mirceta, and we have two on the episode, two BNBF Midlands champions in for an update on how we did, our peak week protocols, and what has been going on in the, well, for us, the most weird scenario post-show you could possibly imagine. Something that defies all science and all literature papers in the books, and we are somewhat superhuman, which you will find out in the podcast later on. But Vicky, like, everyone knows you. Everyone knows who Vicky is, I think, who will listen to this podcast. But Vicky, again, is now... Actually, this is cool again. Like, I don't think there's many other people that have done what me and Vicky have done, which is win 2 Midlands championships. I think obviously Louis Smith, Big Louis, has won 2 overalls, which is really cool. But yeah, Vicky is now like a twice champ, which is pretty epic. And obviously she, like myself, coaches online, coaches 1-to-1. So if you don't know Vicky, you've missed out on not only my podcast, but her podcast, which is also awesome, and I highly recommend that you follow that. So we're going to get stuck straight into things today and avoid the introduction part of the podcast because we know Vicky. So, Vicky, how do you feel now? How do you feel like a week post-show? We're Saturday now, so like last weekend we were 1 day out, which seems crazy. But how do you feel? Give us your honest opinion as to how you feel now.
Well, to be completely honest, right now I feel pretty epic. And that's purely because of the fact that I think a lot of non-epicness in peak week and the few weeks leading up to it is all of the stress and the high cortisol levels that you get.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden you've done your show and now it's like, okay, cool, I've done the show. I've achieved what I set out to achieve.
Sure.
So now a load of stress has come off your shoulders. You've relaxed a little bit more. You're going back into training fresh and that kind of thing. Even though training is hard, though, right? When you get back into it.
Fuck.
That first session back, I felt like I'd been hit by a truck.
Everything felt heavy, right?
Yeah, and it was light weights as well, you know?
Yeah.
I just decided that, obviously I'm coached as well, so my coach basically swapped up my training, and we're having a lot of time under tension stuff at the moment as well, things like 4-second negatives, just to kind of hit the muscle a little bit more.
Interesting. Cool.
Because it's been so depleted throughout peak week and things that it was, and I was very depleted as well going into it, which actually was a little bit detrimental to myself from the feedback that I got from the show, because I needed to be fuller. And I think, unfortunately, being chronically flat for such a long time...
Feeling up was very hard.
Oh, really badly, especially in my legs, you know. So even though my legs came in, and they came in very, very well, much more so than a lot of other of the other girls on stage, and that from the feedback that I had, just due to my condition. I did suffer a little bit with just being flat, especially in my hamstrings and my glutes. So that's something that I've taken away and got to learn from it. But other than that, a week later, I'm sleeping better. I'm enjoying going back to the gym. I'm loving food. Yes. Proper food porn pictures coming up now.
Give us a bit of an idea into that, Vicky. Like what was sort of food like throughout peak week? What was sort of your lowest numbers looking like, and then what sort of transferred going into post show in terms of where your calories are at now and why they are there? Like, for the listeners that don't know why these sort of things take place or why we do these sort of things, explain sort of why your calories were low in peak week and why your calories are now where they're at sort of post show.
Okay, cool. So this peak week was actually very different than what I did back in 2015 peak week, and obviously it's all learning, isn't it? So back in 2015, It was very bro, and we just didn't know a lot and that kind of thing. But this year, it was really eye-opening. So my lowest calorie days, I would have said, in the week leading up to peak week. So those 7 days before, we're looking at about between 13 and 1400 calories on my lowest days.
Sure. Sure.
And
That's
I was
horrendous for a girl of your body weight, you know.
No, not at all, not at all. So I was about 105 pounds, which isn't a great deal. Yeah, very light. And I was still lifting like twice my body weight and things like that at that weight.
Unreal.
But I pushed myself to the nth degree. I'm very intense in my training. You know that anyway. We discussed that quite a lot. So it was about 1,400. And then getting into peak week, I started a depletion phase, which was actually going to start on the Sunday. But I kind of had a big refeed on the Saturday.
Okay.
And nothing happened to my weight. So we were... Yeah, really surprising. So we were expecting my weight to kind of jump up by about 2.5 pounds and nothing happened. So I was told to refeed again exactly the same way on the Sunday because we knew that leading into depletion, I was just going to like come in so much and so fast. So I refed and I got back up to about 3,000 calories on those 2 days. So Saturday, Sunday, both days about 3,000 calories, majority of which came from carbohydrates. On the Monday morning, I weighed in at 105 pounds, 105 pound point 4.
Finally up a little bit.
Yeah, just a tiny bit, just a tiny bit. So I was really pleased with that, and I was like, okay, so I'm aiming to get on stage round about 105 then, you know, from depleting and then obviously getting up. So we started the depletion protocol, and the depletion was 0 carbs and lots of pumpy type style training with supersets and drop sets and just trying to get a lot of the glycogen out of the muscle and out of the liver as you possibly can. And the reason why we do this is to have what's called a super compensation effect. So when you do start to load up those carbohydrates again in 3 or 4 days of time, depending on how long your depletion is, you have this overabundance of cell swelling and your muscles can store a lot more, well, not a lot more, but I think it's something like 0.8% more glycogen inside the muscle.
Different look as well.
Yeah, you just kind of have this overswelled look, you know. It brings a whole new meaning to the word swole when you have this super compensation effect, which is really cool. So on my depletion days, I depleted, the plan was to deplete Monday and Tuesday and then see what I was like on Wednesday. And my calories went down to just over 1,100. So
fats came up, carbs minimal.
Exactly, yeah. And the fats didn't come up that much either. The majority of which it was through protein. And then if you take my body weight in kilos, it's about 42 kilos. So my fats are around 45 grams for those days. And the remainder of it came from really lean protein sources.
Sure.
Which was great. So that was the same Monday and Tuesday. Did my check-in on the Wednesday. We decided to do one more depletion training day on the Wednesday. Sure. On the Monday, I felt absolutely amazing. On the Tuesday, obviously, because I just had a crap load of carbs put in. On the Tuesday, I started to feel draggy. On the Wednesday, I felt like getting up from the sofa was hard as fuck. So that was like true depletion.
Yes.
And then on the Thursday, I think we did one more depletion day, but then I just I didn't do any kind of training on that day though. So I just did one more low food day. No training. Yeah, just rested up. And then on the Friday, that's when we started to load. So I loaded up on, I think it turned out to be something around about 550 grams of carbs that day on the Friday. And just so people know the weight as well, on the Friday morning before loading, I was exactly 102 pounds.
Wow, that was a drop.
Yeah, so just from depletion and depletion training, that just gives people an indication of how much scale weights can reflect on the amount of carbohydrates that you have, water that's in your muscle. So when people freak out after they've had a big carbohydrate meal late at night and they're like, holy shit, I've put on 2 pounds. Yeah, it's not 2 pounds worth of fat. It's going to be water and glycogen, so just chill the fuck out. So on the Friday morning, I was 102 pounds. So went up and did my carbohydrate loading. And then I went up to 103 with 500 odd grams of carbs. Felt absolutely awesome. And then the following day, we reduced it down and I put in another 350 grams of carbs.
Okay. Constantly monitoring the physique in the morning type thing with pictures, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. In the same spot, in the same underwear, in the same poses, same lighting, as much as we could, just to kind of see what was going on, to see if I blurred or bloated or anything else like that.
Sure.
So that worked really well. And then on the morning of the show, woke up exactly 104. Wow. So I was a little bit lighter. No, I didn't. Sorry, I do apologize. On the Saturday, I woke up 104.6.
Okay.
And then on the Sunday, after another 350 gram carb load, I woke up 104. So I actually dropped weight.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, after that second refeed, which I found was a little bit head scratching, but I looked all right.
Okay.
And then tanning up, Scott, my husband, he actually said, dude, you look really flat. I was like, how can I look flat? I've had like nearly 1,000 grams of carbs over the past 2 days. How can I look flat?
Mm-hmm.
And Scott's not got an eye for bodybuilding because he's not a bodybuilder himself. But for him to turn around whilst he was tanning me up and saying, no, you look flat. Your back is flat. I was like, okay, fine. So we'll just have to see how it goes on. And then throughout the day, obviously, I just started dropping some more carbs in. I had quite a high carb meal for breakfast. So I had oats and things like that in the breakfast. And slowly started to fill out. So yeah, that's what happened peak week. And again, looking back on it, we just know how much more my body can tolerate.
Yeah.
Especially on show day as well. I could definitely tolerate a lot more on show day.
Do you think you would do the depletion phase again? Do you think that was something that provided you with a little bit of benefit at all? Or do you think that, potentially finding a look that you were really happy with and sort of trying to maintain that would be something that you could look to do as well, in terms of like, I don't know, just not having to second guess yourself so much with the depletion phase? Because I find, personally, with the way that I approach things, and obviously I did a small depletion. For me, I didn't drop my carbs as severely, but for me, the calories that I was on and the carbohydrates that I was on was extremely low in comparison to what I'd consume on sort of a normal day. And I found that it was almost like, yes, I could have gained a percentage, but I think the percentage that I could have gained was also masked by the fact that I was a little bit under carbs, and trying to find that balance. I think that we both agreed that, trying to find that balance is something that's quite difficult. So, do you think that you might take a different approach for the finals, or do you think that now with the data that you've got from this sort of level of depletion, you'll know a little bit more about what to do?
I think it's a bit of a tough one, isn't it, really? Because obviously, again, I never really second guessed the depletion because I understood how it was going to work from the super compensation effect. Yeah. I think in relation to keeping on a depletion, obviously I work very closely with my coach on that as well, because he looks after my physique very, very closely, which is absolutely paramount. And I think from the depletion, in a way, I sickly enjoyed it, in a sordid, sick sense, because I knew what was coming afterwards. Yeah,
you can sort of see the finish line, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So I think the depletion did work very, very well. And I think after having such a long period of lifting stupid heavy, swapping up your training and doing supersets and pumpy stuff and all the rest of it, that I really enjoyed.
Yeah, me too.
I really enjoyed it. Yeah, really enjoyed that. So I did see a really good effect from the initial carbohydrate load. I saw a brilliant effect. My striations were huge. I was really vascular. I wasn't blurry at all, and I felt fantastic. I think what I have learned from this data is that I would probably tolerate more carbs on both days. And maybe even carb up an extra day. Okay. So drop one depletion day and just do 3 days depletion and then 3 days carb loading. Okay. And that might help a little bit more. I think, again, collecting data from this last week post-show, this is very interesting. Yeah. And I think this data is going to be extraordinarily the same. I don't know if your listeners know or not. I'm pretty sure they do, because they probably follow you on Instagram at the same time. Sure. But you are my second pair of eyes and I'm yours. So that's it. So we speak to each other every single day religiously.
Yeah.
And it's lovely about that because obviously we did the Midlands in 2015 together. We did the Midlands this year together, and now we're doing the finals together. So it's just like, do you know what? Nah, we've got to speak to each other every day. Plus, I love you to death, obviously. So what we have found out this week, just kind of moving on from it, we've both, quote unquote, taken a bit of a diet break.
Yeah.
Is what we're gonna call it.
Diet break. Yeah.
Diet break. And I have literally doubled my calories, if not more.
You're ridiculous, yeah.
I know, mine are ridiculous. So just so people get a bit of an idea, I am 5'1" and a fag dimp, which is not a lot. And that's my height. And I was 105 pounds the day after the show, which was on Monday. I doubled my calories, so I am now on approximately 2,400. About 2,400, an abundance of carbohydrates, over 250 grams of carbohydrates a day.
Do you up your fats a little bit as well?
I think they stayed at around 45.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so they were 40, and now they've gone up to 45.
Okay.
So just a tiny bit, but yeah, 250 grams of carbohydrates. And 2,400 calories, and I have dropped 3.8 pounds this week.
Wow, it's crazy, right? Amazing.
So
cardio and steps have sort of been pretty much exactly the same, haven't they?
No, cardio came down.
Cardio came down slightly, okay. Still doing it, but just slightly less.
So I just went off. I had a complete day off on the Monday. I just went off for a nice walk, and then Tuesday up until today, I did half an hour worth of low impact cardio where I was doing an hour, so it came down by half. And then since my check-in on the Friday and the fact that I've dropped 3.8 pounds this week, I'm now doing no cardio until.
I bet. Good.
Yeah. And no cardio until check-in Tuesday because we were like, okay, this is working well. Let's pull cardio until Tuesday.
Yeah.
And then check in earlier. So, and it's interesting, right? Because obviously most people think if you double your calories, especially overnight like that,
you'll get some glycogen, your body weight will go up at least a little bit. That's what we expect.
Yeah, exactly. No. And so what's been happening with yours? Because you've obviously not gone double like I did, but what were you done from yours?
No, I mean, absolutely. I mean, in the final week before my show, I definitely made some decisions that I think in hindsight were a little silly. I know from my previous preps that I respond extremely well. My body responds extremely well to a more higher carbohydrate, lower fat, moderate protein approach. Like definitely. Keeping carbohydrates as high as possible. And the reason for that is I always feel like I feel better. I feel like I wake up with more fullness. I feel like I'm going into training sessions with a decent level of intensity. Like during my sort of my peak where I was doing those lower carbohydrate, slightly higher fat days, I just felt goddamn awful. Yeah. Horrendous. Like even doing my pump sessions, I just didn't want to go. I got good pumps, but they just felt like they diminished halfway through the session as glycogen just wore off. And yeah, I was just waiting for carbohydrates, and as soon as my body got some carbohydrates, got 750 grams of them on like the day before the show, and yeah, I didn't gain anything. In fact, I hit like a new low on the day of show day, which inevitably told me that the feedback that not only that I got was the fact that I was a little bit too depleted for my liking, even though we didn't sort of run any savage depletion. It was just too much for my body. And then coming out of the show, like you're talking about, yeah, I've bumped calories up. So the lowest calories got before the show, I think my daily intake was around about 2,100-ish. And cardio was every single day on the stairs, which is burning significant calories because the intensity of that is quite high. Yeah. My steps were around about 15,000 a day also. So I was pushing hard. Coming out of the show, I knew I was going to take a diet break. I set my calories up. So my calories now are at 350 carb, 50 fat, and 180 protein, which is actually just under 2,600 calories. So it's about, a 500 calorie jump, which is usually what you take for a diet break. It's usually like a 500 calorie to 600 calorie jump, aiming to achieve maintenance. And so my body weight went up literally like a little bit from glycogen, and also probably some of the assimilation of the food that I ate on show day, which was copious. Because I was a little bit behind on carbohydrates between prejudging and night show. So I ate quite a lot on show day. So it's probably a simulation of those nutrients alongside changing some food sources. Actually, another thing that I must add is that I've used this week to increase sodium. So not only have I increased carbohydrates, increased overall calories, but I actually forcibly increased sodium, because throughout my final weeks I was realizing I'm salting my meals, but I'm not really salting them with that much. Like I was doing maybe 1 or 2 little sort of scrapes of salt. Now I'm doing like 4 per meal. So I just wanted to see how my body would look, how my body would respond to slightly higher sodium. And if anything, I've combined that with tracking my water religiously. So now I know exactly how many litres of water I'm having. 6 litres a day exactly, pretty much. It's from like an Evian bottle, and you know what I'm doing. And then also probably potassium has gone up. So reason why potassium has gone up is because I've switched out what was my carb source being basmati rice for 2 of my carb meals is now white potato. We know white potato is much higher in potassium. So if anything, that regulation I think has caused a nice effect. And if I can, I will pop up an image of me 1 week out, pop up an image of me now 1 week post show, and you can sort of, as a viewer, and if you're on YouTube, you can see the differences. So yeah, like my body weight is as well. Like if you look at my average, I just filled out my averages for this week. I'm 1.2 down on my peak week average. And when I was in my peak week, I legit felt like dog shit, felt awful, felt horrendous all week, was digging, was anxious, probably again a cortisol reduction coming into this week, we think. But yeah, the average is down, and going into next week, I'm only making minor changes. I'm actually just lowering my fat intake slightly. I think carbohydrates are coming down slightly by like 10 or 15 grams just to get myself back into... To be fair, I think I'm kind of in the deficit already.
Yeah, you're still there, aren't you? Yeah.
But yeah, just to bring things down slightly. And again, like we talked about a little bit at your end with feedback from the judges. My feedback was just get leaner. Yours was coming a little bit fuller. And I know that I can get leaner, and I think over the next sort of 6 weeks, we've got 6 weeks left. I think pulling off 4 to 5 pounds, if not 4 to 6 pounds, is definitely feasible. I know I can do that, and I know now from the data that I can come in with a fuller physique as well, because the BNBF talk about this a lot, and other federations will do also. But you can't have condition without fullness. They say that in a lot of the feedback videos. Cannot have condition without fullness, and you know you can get into wacky shape, but if you don't fill out that wacky shape, you won't show it off to the best of its ability. You know, like I was flat for the morning show, and it even though some of the judges didn't quite see it, that some of the people in the crowd, like yourself, I think you, even when I was backstage, you were like, yeah, you're fuller. You saw me backstage, and some of the backstage people, even a lady was doing my glaze. She was like, wow, like you have this, which you didn't have earlier on in the day. So yeah, guys, like it just proves a point that, like, you'll never nail everything straight away. I think that's the take home from obviously today's episode and the podcast, is like when you're doing a peak week, this is the like almost like when you're as lean as we are, you can never predict anything. And we diet for as long as we dieted. I think the fact that we're doing a qualifier and a British finals kind of helps, because if we were just doing one show, we'd have looked back on that one show, wouldn't we? And even though we'd won, we'd have been like, we could have been better.
Yeah, definitely.
Better. So now we've got data, and obviously me and Vicky use coaching sheets. We log everything. We make sure we log all our photos. You're probably exactly like me. You probably got a million albums with different dates on them.
Yeah.
And we crave for this data, and that's something that I haven't done in the past. In 2015, I probably didn't have anywhere near as the amount of pictures that I have now. And you know, we know how important the data is, and it just builds us into a better athlete. So Vicky, what are like your plans? Are your plans now like primarily to focus on the British finals? And what's the plan sort of like? Obviously, I know that cardio is out. Is food just going to stay the same for next week? And are you sort of planning to sort of like roughly maintain your body weight and just try and like push lifts in the gym, etc.? What's the plan for the next 6 weeks?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm on my second week of a new training plan starting from Monday as well, which again is going to be more focused on some time under tension, because I have to say to you, if a lot of the people that I've spoken to has kept training relatively the same in blocks all the time, just adding more reps or more sets, and hitting the volume landmarks and things like that.
Absolutely, yeah.
But which is absolutely awesome and works very, very well, because it's been a proven method. However, what they do tend to sometimes negate is tempo. And if you just change up that tempo a little bit more, keeping the reps the same and the sets the same, but change that tempo, Jesus Christ, it's a whole new game.
Nice new stimulus.
Yeah, beautiful it is, and you do feel like run over by a truck, but it's so good and you feel epic afterwards, so
nice.
I'm going to do that again for the next week, and then possibly change some up, so I'm not going to put any extra loading on my joints that I need to, because obviously I am still very, very light. The game plan is to hopefully maintain my weight round about this level and hopefully put on a little bit more, because I obviously need to put on for some fullness whilst keeping my condition. Again, I work very closely with my coach, Zach, so he's going to be giving me some hints, tips, and basically telling me what to do and keeping my head on level, because I had a little bit of a freak out yesterday, and he got straight on the phone to me and was like, dude, chill the fuck out. You need to do this. So, that's one of my major issues that I have. I have a head wobble quite a lot.
That's normal.
Yeah, it is normal. I think it's because if you don't have that head wobble, you don't want it enough. Yes. You're not passionate enough, and you don't love the process. So that's my plan. And then obviously leading forward to the next 6 weeks, just keeping on digging, keeping on smashing things in the gym, keeping up to date with all of my meals, my foods, keeping on track with everything. What I did want to just kind of touch on a little bit was when you mentioned you didn't come in as full and as conditioned in the daytime as you did do in the nighttime. And we were obviously, we were back to back on classes, weren't we? So I saw you pumping up just as I was going forward. And I even looked at you and said, you look better. So it was just that little thing, and you were waiting for me in the wings when I came out with my trophy.
Yeah, I was like, fuck yes.
Yeah. I just slapped your ass and said, "My fucking smile, dude," And that was it, which is great. But one thing that we both took away from this is that the comparison rounds are at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and you never train at 1 in the afternoon.
Yeah.
So this is a big variable in your data, and what a lot of people I think should take away from it. If you only train at 6 in the morning, or you only train at 5 o'clock at night, and your show and your class is on at 1 in the afternoon, you need to know what you look like at 1 in the afternoon.
You do,
carved up, pumped, and everything else, so you can change those variables over, because that's what AJ learned this season. And he came to me almost a broken man when we were having coffee at Nero in the afternoon break, and you know what, I had to give him a huge
lost it.
I know you did. But do you know what was so elating? It was the fact that you were so despondent, crouched down next to me, talking to me about it, saying, dude, I fucked up and I don't know this, I don't know that. And then the minute you were backstage and you were pumping up at that point, and we looked at each other, I was like, yeah, you look better. You're like, okay, come on. So it was so nice to see you go from so despondent to that confident AJ that I know that you are. Yeah. So again, it's just collecting that data, guys, and it's really, really important for your next prep, for your show, to collect every variable that you can get, including what time you're going to be on stage.
Yeah.
So that, again, I think is something you're going to work on in the next 6 weeks as well, and play around with your training time.
Massively,
yeah. And I'm just going to basically keep on going, because I train at 1 in the afternoon, so I'm quite lucky in that regard. I don't need to change any training time.
Yeah, no, it works well for you. Awesome. Yeah, I think this has been a superb update for both of us. Hopefully people have enjoyed this. Guys, like if you like these, I know that Steve and Pascal have done theirs with Revive Stronger, and me and Vicky are very, very close. maybe this is something we can run like 3 weeks out. We can do a bit of an update, and then 1 week out from the finals we could do a bit of an update. So guys, if you really like this and you like us having a bit of a chat back and forth about what we're both doing, let us know by either like commenting in the YouTube comments and just saying, yeah, do this more often, or screenshot that you're listening and whack it on your Instagram story, tag us both. If we get a nice little fan following going on, then we may well release a few more of these. I'm sure Vicky will be up for that. So yes, guys, thank you very much for listening to the episode. As usual, I'll link and let you know where Vicky is available to be followed if you're not already following her. And we will see you back for episode number 8 in the near future with another natty guest, and hope you have a good week, and cheers Vicky for your time as well. Thank you.
No worries, see you later.
Cool. Cheers guys.